Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, staring at the endless darkness of space. She'd been traveling for 3 months, exploring distant star systems that no human had ever seen before. Her crew was small but skilled, and they had discovered 2 planets that might be suitable for human colonies. Everything seemed perfect until the sensors started screaming. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures," her communications officer shouted. "Something big is coming out of dark space." Sarah rushed to the main screen. What she saw made her blood run cold. Hundreds of ships were appearing from nowhere, each one larger than any human vessel ever built. They were black and angular, covered in strange symbols that glowed with a sickly green light. The ships moved in perfect formation, like a school of predatory fish. "Get me a connection to Earth, Command," Sarah ordered. Now, but before the message could go through, the alien fleet changed direction. They were heading toward Earth. Sarah watched helplessly as the massive armada jumped to faster-than-light speed, disappearing in flashes of green light. Her ship was too far away to warn anyone in time. "Follow them," she commanded. "Maximum speed." The journey back to Earth took 2 days. 2 days of terrible silence. When Sarah's ship finally arrived in Earth's solar system, she found a war zone. The alien fleet surrounded the planet like a noose. Human defense stations were burning, broken pieces of metal floating in the darkness. Earth's orbital platforms were being destroyed one by one, exploding in brilliant flashes that lit up the night sky. Sarah tried to contact the surface, but all she got was chaos. Screaming voices. Desperate calls for help. Reports of cities falling. The aliens, whoever they were, had weapons that cut through human shields like paper. Their ships could take direct hits from Earth's most powerful missiles and barely show damage. "Commander, we're being hailed," her communications officer said. "It's Admiral Webb." The Admiral's face appeared on screen. He looked exhausted, his uniform torn and covered in dust. Behind him, Sarah could see smoke and emergency lights flashing. "Chen, listen carefully," Webb said. "We're evacuating. The defense has failed. These aliens call themselves the Krillian Empire, and they've done this before to other worlds. We can't stop them." He paused, and Sarah saw tears in his eyes. "Get to the outer colonies. Gather whoever you can. We're going to need every ship, every person, if we're going to survive this." "What about Earth?" Sarah asked, her voice breaking. "Earth is lost," Webb replied. "Save who you can and run." The connection cut off. Sarah stood frozen, unable to process what she had just heard. Earth, her home, the birthplace of humanity, was being conquered by aliens. Everything she knew, everyone she loved, was down there. "Commander, 3 Krillian ships are breaking formation," her tactical officer warned. "They're heading our way," Sarah snapped back to reality. "Get us out of here." Set course for the Kuiper Belt. Her ship turned and ran. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller. Sarah watched through the rear cameras as green lights covered the planet's surface. Landing ships. Invasion forces. The Krillians were taking her world, and there was nothing she could do about it. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare. Sarah's ship found other survivors in the Kuiper Belt, a region of ice and rock at the edge of the solar system. Dozens of ships had escaped, carrying maybe 50,000 people total. It was nothing compared to Earth's population of 12 billion. Admiral Webb had survived and was organizing the survivors. He had set up a command post on a small ice moon, hidden from Krillian sensors. Sarah landed her ship and went to meet him. The Admiral looked worse than before. He had lost weight and his hair had turned gray, but his eyes were still sharp, still full of determination. "We have reports from Earth," he told Sarah and the other ship commanders who had gathered. "The Krillians are enslaving the population. They're taking resources, stripping the planet bare. Anyone who resists is killed immediately." "How did this happen?" someone asked. "We had the best military in human history." "We were children playing with toys," Webb said bitterly. "The Krillians have conquered dozens of worlds. They've been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while we've barely left our own solar system. We never stood a chance." Sarah felt anger building inside her. "So what do we do?" Just hide out here forever? Webb looked at her with something like respect. No, we fight back. But we need to be smart about it. We need to learn everything we can about the Krillians. Their technology, their weaknesses, their culture. He pulled up a hologram of the galaxy. Red dots marked Krillian-controlled worlds. There were dozens of them scattered across hundreds of light years. Intelligence suggests the Krillians have enemies, Webb continued. Other species they've conquered. If we can make contact with them, maybe we can form an alliance. But first, we need information. Sarah understood what he was asking before he said it. You want someone to go into Krillian territory? I want you to go, Webb said. You're one of our best pilots, and you kept your head during the invasion. I need you to infiltrate one of their worlds and steal whatever technology you can find, especially their faster-than-light drives and weapon systems. If we can reverse engineer their tech, we might have a fighting chance. That's a suicide mission, another commander said. Everything is a suicide mission now, Webb replied. But if we do nothing, humanity dies. If we try and fail, humanity dies. The only difference is whether we go down fighting or on our knees. Sarah thought about Earth, about her family who she would never see again. She thought about the billions of people now suffering under alien rule. She thought about the green lights covering her planet like a disease. I'll do it, she said. Give me a team and whatever resources you can spare. Webb nodded slowly. You'll leave in 2 days. We've identified a Krillian research facility on a world called Zerth Prime. If you can get in there, you might find what we need that night. Sarah stood in the observation dome of the Ice Moon base looking at the distant stars. Somewhere out there was Zerth Prime. Somewhere out there were the Krillians, the monsters who had destroyed her world. She clenched her fists, feeling fear and determination mixing together. She had been an explorer, someone who searched for new worlds and new possibilities. Now she would become something else. A spy, a thief, maybe even a soldier. Whatever it took to strike back at the Empire that had taken everything from her, the galaxy was watching. The Krillians thought they had one, but humanity had survived worse. They had crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. They had faced extinction before, and always found a way to endure. Sarah, Chen would make sure they did it again. The journey to Zerth Prime took 17 days. Sarah's team consisted of 5 people, all volunteers who had lost everything in the invasion. They traveled in a captured Krillian scout ship that had been damaged during the battle for Earth. Human engineers had repaired it, but barely understood how it worked. Sarah spent those 17 days studying everything they knew about Krillian culture. It wasn't much. The aliens were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. They breathed the same air as humans, but preferred it colder and drier. Their society was organized into strict castes, with warriors at the top and workers at the bottom. They spoke through a combination of sounds and chemical signals that humans couldn't naturally produce. How are we supposed to pass as Krillians? Asked Marcus, her tactical officer. We don't even look like them. Sarah showed him the biomechanical suits they had found on the captured ship. They were like living machines, growing over the wearer's body and changing their appearance. When Sarah put one on, it felt like cold water spreading across her skin. Within minutes, her reflection showed a Krillian staring back at her. It reads our thoughts, she explained. The suit changes based on what we're thinking about. It also translates our speech and produces the chemical signals Krillians use to communicate. That's horrifying, Marcus said, but he put on his suit anyway. Zerth Prime appeared on their sensors like a dark jewel. The planet was covered in massive structures, cities that stretched across entire continents. Green lights marked military installations, and Sarah counted at least 30 warships in orbit. One mistake here, and they would all die. They used false identification codes to land at a workers' district. The Krillians didn't even check their ship. Sarah realized that the Empire was so confident in its power that it barely bothered with security for low-caste workers. The city was nothing like Earth. Everything was angular and cold. Built from dark metal and stone, Krillians moved through the streets in organized groups, never speaking, barely acknowledging each other. Sarah felt like she was walking through a machine rather than a living city. "The research facility is in the military sector," Sarah whispered to her team. "We need to get work permits to enter that area." They spent 2 days establishing their cover story, posing as maintenance workers transferred from another world. The bureaucracy was slow, but efficient. Finally, they received clearance to enter the military sector. The research facility was a massive pyramid structure that dominated the skyline. Armed guards stood at every entrance, and security sensors covered every corridor. Sarah's team split up, each taking different jobs within the facility to avoid suspicion. Sarah worked in the lower levels, cleaning equipment and running errands for Krillian scientists. It was humiliating work, but it gave her access to restricted areas. She memorized every corridor, every security checkpoint, every guard rotation. On her 5th day, she met Zektar. He was a Krillian engineer, thin, even by their standards, with scars covering his lower arms. He worked alone, avoiding the other Krillians, and Sarah noticed that higher caste warriors treated him with contempt. "You're new, Zektar," said to her one day in the equipment storage room. His chemical signals carried curiosity. Sarah's suit translated her response. "Transferred from Sector 7. "I can tell you're lying," Zektar said quietly. "Your chemical signals are wrong. Too simple. You're wearing a mimicry suit." Sarah's hand moved toward her weapon, but Zektar raised his arms in a peaceful gesture. "I won't report you," he said. "I hate this place. I hate the Empire. I hate what we've become." "Why?" Sarah asked carefully. Zektar's story came out slowly over the next few days. He had been born on a conquered world, not on the Krillian homeworld. His people had been peaceful scientists before the Empire came. They were forced to join the military or die. Zektar had chosen to live, but he hated every moment of it. "There are many like me," he explained. "Conquered people forced to serve. We're treated as lesser beings, given the worst jobs, blamed for every failure. But we're not allowed to leave or resist." Sarah saw an opportunity. "Could you help us access the main research lab?" Zektar was quiet for a long time. "If I do this, they'll kill me. They'll kill everyone who knew me. If you don't, the Empire will keep conquering worlds forever," Sarah replied. "How many more species will suffer like yours did?" Finally, Zektar agreed. He led Sarah's team through maintenance tunnels that bypassed most security. They reached the main laboratory late at night, when only a skeleton crew was present. What Sarah saw inside took her breath away. The laboratory was filled with technology beyond human understanding. Quantum phase drives that could fold space itself. Neural disruptors that could shut down organic brains from orbit. Power sources that generated energy from nothing. The Krillians weren't just ahead of humans. They were centuries ahead. Marcus began downloading everything he could, while the others stood guard. Sarah photographed equipment and stole small devices that might be useful. They had maybe 20 minutes before the next security patrol. "This is it," Marcus whispered excitedly. "This is everything we need. The drive systems, the weapons, the power generation. If our scientists can reverse engineer this, we can build ships that match the Krillians." But then alarms started screaming. Red lights flooded the laboratory. Sarah heard heavy footsteps approaching. "Someone triggered the sensors," Zektar said. His chemical signals radiating fear, the doors burst open, and Krillian soldiers poured in. Sarah's team opened fire, their weapons cutting down the first wave, but more kept coming. Sarah saw 2 of her team members fall, their biomechanical suits failing as Krillian weapons tore through them. "Get to the ship," Sarah screamed. They ran through the corridors, fighting every step of the way. Zektar led them through shortcuts and service passages. Behind them, Sarah heard a voice speaking in perfect Krillian. It was calm and cold. "Stop them. Kill them all." Sarah glanced back and saw a massive Krillian warrior covered in military decorations and scars. He pointed at her with one of his forearms. "You," he said. "I'll remember your face, human." They made it to the landing platform where their ship waited. Marcus was carrying the data storage device, and Sarah had weapons technology in her pack. But they had lost 2 people, and Zektar was wounded. "Go," Zektar said, pushing Sarah toward the ship. "I'll hold them here. Come with us," Sarah insisted. "They'll track your ship if I'm aboard," Zektar replied. "My biosignature's registered in their systems. Besides, someone needs to close the blast doors behind you." Sarah wanted to argue, but more soldiers were coming. She pulled Zektar close. "Thank you. Make it worth something," Zektar said. Then he pushed her through the ship's airlock. The ship launched as Zektar sealed the blast doors. Through the external cameras, Sarah watched him fighting until the soldiers overwhelmed him. She didn't look away. She owed him that much. The journey back to the outer colonies took 19 days. Sarah spent every moment thinking about the 2 team members they had lost, and about Zektar's sacrifice. But she also thought about the data they had stolen. It might be enough. It might give humanity a chance. When they arrived at the Ice Moon base, Admiral Webb met them personally. He looked at the data storage device like it was made of gold. He asked. 3, Sarah replied. 2 humans and 1 Krillian who decided our cause was worth dying for? Webb nodded slowly. Then we'd better make sure their sacrifice means something. Get our scientists working on this immediately. Sarah walked away from the debriefing, exhausted and haunted. But they had done it. They had struck at the Empire and lived. And somewhere in Krillian space, there were others like Zektar, waiting for a chance to be free. The war had truly begun. The Ice Moon base had become a hive of activity. Human scientists worked day and night trying to understand the stolen Krillian technology. Dr. Amara Okonkwo led the research team. She was a brilliant physicist who had escaped Earth just hours before the Krillians captured her city. Now she spent 18 hours, days staring at alien equations and mysterious devices. Sarah visited the research lab whenever she could. She watched Amara and her team taking apart the small devices they had stolen, analyzing every component, trying to understand how they worked. "It's like trying to understand a computer when you've only ever seen a wooden wheel," Amara said one day, rubbing her tired eyes. "The Krillians use quantum mechanics in ways we didn't think were possible. Their power sources tap into dimensions we can barely detect." "How long until we can use it?" Sarah asked. "Months, maybe years. We're not just copying their technology. We're trying to understand the science behind it. And even if we figure it out, we don't have the materials or factories to build it." That was the problem. The outer colonies had maybe 100,000 people scattered across dozens of small settlements. They had mining operations and basic factories, but nothing like Earth's industrial power. The Krillians had taken that away. Meanwhile, conditions in the colonies were getting worse. Food was running low. Medical supplies were almost gone. Refugees from Earth brought diseases that spread quickly in the crowded shelters. People were losing hope. Admiral Webb called a meeting of all the colony leaders. Sarah attended as one of his senior officers. The mood in the room was dark. "Can't keep going like this," one of the colony governors said. "People are starving. Children are dying from treatable diseases. Maybe we should try to negotiate with the Krillians?" "Negotiate?" Webb said angrily. "They're not interested in negotiation. They want slaves and resources. Anyone who surrenders will spend the rest of their life in chains. At least they'd be alive," another voice said. Sarah stood up. "I've seen what the Krillians do to conquered people. I met someone who lived under their rule. They don't treat you like prisoners. They treat you like tools. When you break, they throw you away." The argument continued for hours. Finally, Webb made a decision. "We can't beat the Krillians alone," he said. "But intelligence reports suggest we're not the only ones fighting them. The Krillians have conquered other species. If those species still have resistance movements, maybe we can work together." He pulled up a star map showing 3 other worlds. The Vexari were conquered 50 years ago. The Delphians 30 years ago. The Lumens 20 years ago. Each of them had advanced civilizations before the Krillians came. Each of them still has underground resistance fighters. "You want us to contact alien resistance groups?" Someone asked. "We don't even speak their languages. We have the biomechanical suits," Sarah said. "They translate, and we have something these other species don't have." We have fresh intel on Krillian technology. We have weapons data. That might be enough to convince them to work with us. Webb looked at Sarah. I want you to make contact. Visit each world, find their resistance movements, and try to build an alliance. Sarah knew it was dangerous. These other species might hate humans. They might refuse to help. But it was better than sitting on an ice moon waiting to starve. She took a small ship and a crew of 3. Their first stop was Vexar, the insectoid homeworld. The planet was covered in hive structures, massive buildings that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Krillian military bases occupied the major cities. Finding the Vexari resistance was harder than Sarah expected. She spent weeks searching, making quiet inquiries, following rumors. Finally, a contact led her to an abandoned hive deep underground. The Vexari were unlike anything Sarah had seen. They stood on 4 legs, with 2 arms, their bodies covered in natural armor. They communicated through clicking sounds and chemical scents. The biomechanical suit translated, but Sarah could tell the Vexari were suspicious. Why should we trust humans? Their leader, called Crix, asked. You fell to the Krillians in weeks. We fought for 10 years before we lost. Because we have something you need, Sarah replied. She showed them the stolen data. Krillian weapons technology, drive systems. If we work together, we can build better ships. Crix examined the data carefully. This is valuable. But what makes you think you can fight the Empire? You're weak. Sarah felt anger rising, but forced it down. We're learning, and we're not asking you to trust us. We're asking you to use us. Help us get stronger, and we'll help you get revenge. The Vexari debated for hours, their clicking sounds rising and falling. Finally, Crix agreed to consider an alliance, but only if Sarah could prove she could unite the other conquered species too, the Delphian homeworld. The Delphians were aquatic beings, graceful and intelligent. They had been peaceful before the Krillians came, focused on art and philosophy. The invasion had shattered their civilization. Sarah found their resistance in underwater, cities that the Krillians hadn't discovered. The Delphians were reluctant to fight. We are not warriors, their spokesperson, Lyra, said through translated whistles and songs. Violence is not our way. The Krillians left you no choice, Sarah argued. They took your peaceful world and turned it into a slave colony. Sometimes you have to fight for peace. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Show us that there's hope. Show us that fighting isn't pointless. Then maybe we'll consider it. The Lumen homeworld was the strangest. The Lumens were crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns. They had been mathematicians and scientists, their entire culture built on logic and reason. The Krillian invasion had nearly destroyed them. Sarah found their resistance in hidden caves where the Lumens could survive without light from their sun. They were dying slowly, their crystalline bodies dimming. We have analyzed the situation, their leader, called Prism, said through flashing lights. The probability of defeating the Krillian Empire is 0.03%. We will not waste our remaining time on impossible causes. Sarah felt desperation. What if we could improve those odds? We have technology. We have allies. We have determination. Determination is an emotional concept, Prism replied. It does not change mathematical reality. Sarah thought about everything she had learned, everyone she had lost. You're wrong. Math can't predict everything. I've seen 3 people delay an entire Krillian battalion. I've seen one engineer betray his empire to help strangers. Sometimes the impossible happens because someone decides to make it happen. Prism's lights flickered in what Sarah's suit translated as consideration. You are statistically anomalous. We will observe your efforts. Sarah returned to the Ice Moon base exhausted. She had no firm commitments, only possibilities. But Admiral Webb saw something in her report. They're all waiting to see if we can actually do something, he said. They need proof that resistance isn't pointless. Then we need to give them proof, Sarah replied. Webb smiled for the first time in months. Dr. Okonkwo has made a breakthrough. She's figured out how to combine human engineering with the Krillian power systems. We can't build their drives yet, but we can build better weapons. Over the next 3 months, Sarah traveled between the 4 worlds, slowly building trust. She brought Vexer metallurgists to the human base to work with Amara's team. She showed Delphian engineers how to adapt their energy systems to human ships. She asked Lumen mathematicians to help calculate optimal ship designs. Slowly, impossibly, an alliance began to form. The four species started working together, sharing knowledge, combining their strengths. The Vixari were excellent at making strong, light materials. The Delphians understood energy systems better than anyone. The Lumens could calculate things that human computers couldn't handle, and humans were good at improvising and taking risks. Sarah called a meeting on a neutral moon. Representatives from all four species gathered in person for the first time. She stood before them, feeling the weight of billions of lives on her shoulders. "The Krillians think we're broken," she said. "They think we'll never fight back. But they're wrong. Together, we're stronger than apart. Together, we can build ships that can challenge them. Together, we can take back our worlds." The room was silent. Then Crix stood, his insectoid body towering over the others. "The Vexari will join your coalition." Lyra rose next, her fluid movements graceful. "The Delphians will fight." Prism's crystalline form glowed brightly. Statistical analysis has been revised. With combined resources, the probability of success is now 7.4%. The Lumens will participate. It wasn't much. 7%. But it was better than 0. Sarah felt hope for the first time since Earth fell. The coalition of free worlds built their fleet in secret. Hidden shipyards floated in asteroid belts and inside the atmospheres of gas. Giants where Krillian sensors couldn't detect them. Workers from 4 different species labored side by side, creating something new. The ships were unlike anything any of them had built before. They used Vexari armor plating that was stronger than steel, but lighter than aluminum. They had Delphian energy cores that could power weapons for hours without recharging. They had Lumen computer systems that could calculate jump coordinates in seconds. And they had human creativity. Designs that mixed all these elements in unexpected ways. Sarah was promoted to Coalition Strike Commander. She spent her days training mixed crews, teaching Vexari warriors to work with human pilots, showing Delphian engineers how to coordinate with Lumen navigation officers. It was chaotic and frustrating. But slowly, the different species learned to trust each other. Crix became Sarah's second-in-command. The Vexari warrior had lost his entire hive to the Krillians and fought with a cold fury that sometimes scared Sarah. But he was also loyal and smart, and his tactical knowledge saved lives during training exercises. Lyra led the Delphian contingent. She had given up her species' pacifism to fight for freedom, and that decision haunted her. Sarah often found her alone, staring at nothing, struggling with the violence she now committed. "My people used to create beautiful things," Lyra said one day. "Music that could make stars weep. Art that captured the essence of life itself. Now I teach others how to kill." "When this is over, you can create again," Sarah told her. "But right now, we need warriors." "Will it ever really be over?" Lyra asked sadly. Sarah had no answer. The coalition grew stronger over the months. Intelligence reports suggested they now had 200 ships ready for combat. It wasn't much compared to the thousands of Krillian warships, but it was enough to maybe win a single battle. Then everything went wrong. War Master Throck, the Krillian commander who had seen Sarah on Zareth Prime, had been hunting her ever since. He had tracked her movements across multiple systems, following the trail of the Coalition's activities. Now he had found one of their shipyards. The attack came without warning. Throk's battle group jumped into the asteroid belt where 50 Coalition ships were being constructed. Krillian warships opened fire immediately, their weapons tearing through the half-built vessels like paper. Sarah was visiting that shipyard when the attack began. She rushed to her fighter as explosions lit up the darkness around her. Coalition ships scrambled to launch, many of them not even fully armed yet. "All ships, defensive formation." Sarah screamed into her communicator. "Protect the construction facilities." The battle was chaos. Coalition ships were faster and more maneuverable than Krillian vessels, but they were outnumbered 3-1. Sarah flew her fighter through storms of weapons fire, targeting Krillian engines and weapon systems. Around her, she saw coalition ships exploding, taking their mixed crews to their deaths. Crix led a squadron of Vexari fighters in a desperate charge against a Krillian destroyer. They managed to disable it, but half his squadron died in the process. Lyra's Delphian ships used their superior speed to draw fire away from the construction platforms, but they were taking heavy damage. Sarah saw a massive Krillian battleship targeting the main research station where Dr. Okonkwo was working. She pushed her fighter to maximum speed, firing everything she had at the battleship. It wasn't enough. The battleship's weapons struck the research station, and Sarah watched it explode in a ball of fire. No. She screamed, but there was nothing she could do. Amara and her entire research team were gone. The battle lasted for hours. Finally, Throk's forces withdrew, satisfied with the damage they had caused. Sarah looked at the aftermath and felt sick. A quarter of their fleet was destroyed. The research station was gone. Hundreds of people were dead. She landed her damaged fighter on one of the surviving platforms and climbed out. Crix was there, his armor scorched and cracked. Lyra arrived minutes later, her ship barely functioning. "We lost," Crix said simply. "We survived," Sarah corrected him, but her voice was hollow. Admiral Webb arrived the next day. He looked at the wreckage and the casualty reports without expression. Sarah could see him aging before her eyes. "Maybe we should give up," someone said at the emergency meeting. Maybe Prism was right. Maybe this is impossible. Sarah slammed her fist on the table. Amara didn't die so we could give up. Those pilots didn't sacrifice themselves so we could surrender. We keep fighting. Fighting for what? Another voice asked. We can barely defend ourselves. How are we supposed to attack the Krillians? Webb held up a datapad. Before she died, Dr. Okonkwo transmitted her final research. She found something in the data Sarah brought back from Zeroth Prime. The Krillians coordinate all their fleets from a central command hub on their capital world, Kryaloth. It's how they can control thousands of ships across hundreds of light years. You'd let that sink in. If we could destroy that hub, we could disable their entire fleet simultaneously. Every ship, every weapon system, all of it would shut down. That's suicide, Crix said. Kryaloth is the most heavily defended world in the Empire. They have orbital platforms, defense fleets, and millions of soldiers. S. Webb agreed. Most of us won't survive. But if we succeed, we could end this war in a single strike. We could free every world the Krillians have conquered. The room fell silent. Sarah thought about Earth, about her family, about Zektar and Amara, and everyone else who had died. She thought about the 7% chance Prism had calculated. "I vote we do it," she said. One by one, the others agreed. Even Lyra, who hated violence, raised her hand in support. Crix was the last, and when he voted yes, it was unanimous. "Then we prepare," Webb said. "We have 2 months to build as many ships as we can and train our crews. After that, we attack Kryloth." Those 2 months passed in a blur. The coalition worked frantically to replace their losses and build new ships. Sarah trained with her pilots every day, running simulation after simulation of the attack. The odds were terrible. The simulations predicted 90% casualties, but no one backed down. The Vexari wanted revenge. The Delphians wanted peace. The Lumens wanted their data to be proven correct. And the humans wanted their home back. Prism approached Sarah 1 week before the attack. The Lumen's crystalline body glowed with complex light patterns. "I have recalculated our chances," Prism said. "With the information we've gathered about Kryaloth's defenses, the probability of success is now 4.1%. That's worse than before," Sarah said. "Yes, but I wanted you to know that we're still coming. The Lumens have decided that some things matter more than probabilities. Freedom is one of them." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you." The night before the attack, Sarah walked through the hangar bay, looking at the coalition fleet. 300 ships, each one carrying beings from different worlds. All united by a common enemy and a desperate hope. She found Crix checking his fighters' weapons. "Are you scared?" she asked him. "Terrified," Crix replied, "but also eager. Tomorrow, we either free our people or we die trying. Either way, the waiting ends." Lyra was nearby, painting something on her ship's hull. It was a Delphian symbol that meant hope through sacrifice. "I never thought I'd become a warrior," Lyra said softly. "But if I must be one, at least I fight for something beautiful." Sarah returned to her own ship. She recorded a message, just in case she didn't survive. In it, she talked about Earth, about the people she had met, about the alliance they had built. She talked about how different species could work together when they shared a common cause. "We're about to do something crazy," she said into the camera. "We're going to attack the heart of an empire that has conquered dozens of worlds. We'll probably die. But if we win, if we somehow manage to win, then maybe no other world will suffer like ours did. Maybe the galaxy will finally be free." She ended the recording and prepared for battle. Tomorrow, they would find out if hope was stronger than empire, if unity was stronger than tyranny, if her broken civilizations could defeat the military power that had crushed them all. The galaxy was about to watch humanity strike back. The Coalition fleet gathered at the edge of Krillian space. 300 ships carrying beings from 4 different worlds, all preparing to do the impossible. Sarah stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the tactical display. In a few minutes, they would jump to Cryoloth and either make history or become another footnote in the Krillian. Empire's list of conquered peoples, Admiral Webb's face, appeared on the communication screen. He was staying behind to coordinate the resistance movements on the occupied worlds. If the attack failed, he would be humanity's last hope. "Good luck, Commander," Webb said. "Make them remember us." "We will," Sarah promised. The fleet jumped to light speed. When they emerged at the edge of the Cryoloth system, Sarah's heart sank. The intelligence reports hadn't prepared her for the reality. The Krillian homeworld was surrounded by thousands of defense platforms. Hundreds of warships patrolled in perfect formations. Energy shields covered the entire planet like a glowing dome. "Sensors are detecting massive energy signatures," her tactical officer reported. "They're powering up their weapons. All of them. All ships, attack formation," Sarah commanded. "Remember the plan. We break through to the planet's surface, no matter the cost." The Krillian fleet moved to intercept them. The space between the Coalition and Cryoloth lit up with weapons fire. Coalition ships weaved through the storm, their mixed crews working with practiced coordination. Vexari gunners fired with deadly accuracy. Delphian pilots performed impossible maneuvers. Lumen computers calculated trajectories faster than any Krillian system could match. But it wasn't enough. Coalition ships started exploding one after another. Sarah watched her tactical display as green dots representing her ships turned red and disappeared. They were losing ships faster than she had predicted. "Sarah, their defense grid is too strong." Crix shouted over the communications. "We need to create an opening." Sarah knew what he meant. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves to destroy one of the major defense platforms. It would create a gap in the shield, but whoever did it wouldn't survive. "Crix, no," Sarah began. "It's been an honor fighting with you, Commander," Crix said. His Vexari cruiser broke formation and accelerated toward the largest defense platform. Every weapon on his ship fired at once as he rammed into the station at maximum speed. The explosion was massive. The defense platform shattered, and a section of the planetary shield flickered and died. But Crix was gone. "Push through," Sarah screamed. "Don't let his sacrifice be meaningless." The Coalition fleet surged through the gap. Lyra's ships used their speed to widen the breach, drawing fire from every direction. Sarah watched as Delphian vessels exploded one by one, but they kept fighting, kept creating space for others to advance. "Lyra, pull back," Sarah ordered. "Negative, Commander," Lyra replied, her voice calm despite the chaos. "My people were pacifists once. We died as pacifists. Better to die as warriors fighting for peace." Her ship took a direct hit and disappeared in a flash of light. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, but she couldn't stop. They were too close now. "Strike team, form up on me," she commanded. "We're going to the surface." 20 ships broke away from the main battle and dove toward Kryaloth's surface. Behind them, the rest of the Coalition fleet fought desperately to keep the Krillian forces occupied. Sarah knew most of them wouldn't survive, but they were buying time with their lives. The planetary atmosphere was thick and turbulent. Sarah's ship shook violently as they descended. Krillian fighters pursued them. Sarah lost 5 more ships before they broke through the clouds. The Krillian capital city stretched across the horizon, a massive metropolis of dark towers and military installations. At the center stood the command hub, a pyramid structure so large it seemed to touch the sky. "That's our target," Sarah said. "All ships cover me. I'm going in." Her ship and 3 others raced toward the pyramid while the rest of her strike force engaged the pursuing Krillian fighters. Anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. Sarah's ship took hit after hit, systems failing one by one. "Hull breach on deck 3. Someone shouted, "Engines are failing." "Keep going," Sarah ordered. They crashed through the pyramid's outer wall, the ship tearing through metal and stone. Sarah's ship skidded to a halt inside a massive chamber filled with Krillian computer systems and control stations. She and her surviving crew members scrambled out, weapons ready. Krillian guards poured into the chamber. Sarah's team fought desperately, pushing toward the central control system. She armed the quantum charges they had brought, devices designed to create a cascading dimensional collapse that would destroy the hub and every ship connected to its network. Then War Master Throck appeared. He was even larger than Sarah remembered, covered in battle scars and carrying weapons in all 4 arms. "You," he said, recognizing her. "The human who stole from Zareth Prime? You've caused me considerable trouble." "Good," Sarah replied, raising her weapon. They fought in the ruin chamber. Surrounded by dying crew members and destroyed equipment, Throck was stronger and faster, his 4 arms attacking from multiple angles. Sarah was smaller, but quicker, using her size to dodge his strikes. The fight was brutal. Sarah felt her ribs crack under one of Throck's blows. He grabbed her by the throat with 2 hands, lifting her off the ground. Sarah struggled, unable to breathe, her vision starting to darken. Then someone shot Throck in the back. The War Master stumbled, and Sarah fell. She looked up and saw Zektar. The engineer she thought had died on Zareth Prime. He was covered in scars and looked half dead, but he was alive. He survived. Sarah gasped. "Barely," Zektar replied. "I've been part of the Krillian resistance, waiting for a chance to strike. When I heard about your attack, I knew this was it." Throck roared and turned on Zektar. The engineer fired until his weapon was empty, then charged at Throck with nothing but his bare hands. Sarah watched in horror as Throck killed Zektar. But the delay gave her enough time to reach her weapon. She shot Throck repeatedly until he finally fell. The War Master looked at her with hatred in his eyes. "You cannot win," he said. "The Empire is eternal." "Nothing is eternal," Sarah replied. She armed the quantum charges and ran for her damaged ship. The timer showed 30 seconds. She managed to get the engines working and launched through the hole her ship had made in the pyramid wall. "All Coalition forces retreat," she broadcast. "The charges are set. Get clear of the planet." Her ship climbed through the atmosphere as the countdown reached 0. The pyramid exploded, but it wasn't a normal explosion. Reality itself seemed to tear apart, creating a wave of dimensional energy that spread across the planet and into space. Sarah watched on her sensors as the dimensional collapse spread through the Krillian command network. Every ship connected to the hub started shutting down. Weapons went offline. Shields failed. Engines stopped. Across the entire Kryaloth system, thousands of Krillian ships became floating debris. The Coalition fleet, though reduced to less than 50 ships, began destroying the helpless Krillian vessels. Without their central command, the Krillians couldn't coordinate a response. Their entire military structure collapsed like a house of cards. But the dimensional wave didn't stop at Kryaloth. It traveled through the Krillian network to every occupied world. On Earth, resistance fighters watched as Krillian war machines simply stopped working. On Vexar, and the Delphian homeworld, and the Lumen planet, The oppressors suddenly became powerless. Sarah's ship limped back to the Coalition fleet. She was wounded, exhausted, and heartbroken by the losses they had suffered. But they had won. Against all odds, they had struck at the heart of the Empire and destroyed it. 6 months later, Sarah stood on Earth. The Krillians had been driven off. Their empire fractured into dozens of warring factions that no longer posed a unified threat. The Coalition of Free Worlds had become a permanent alliance, with representatives from all 4 species working together to rebuild their worlds. Earth was scarred but healing. Cities were being reconstructed. Refugees were returning home. The dead numbered in the billions. But the survivors were free. Sarah visited a memorial built for everyone who had died in the war. She found the name she was looking for, Crix. Lyra, Zektar, Dr. Amara Okonkwo, and thousands of others who had sacrificed everything. Admiral Webb found her there. He looked older, but more at peace than he had in months. "The Coalition Council wants to offer you command of our new defense fleet," he said. "We need someone who can keep us united and protect us from future threats." She could see ships from all 4 species moving through Earth's orbit, working together to repair the orbital stations. It was a sight she never thought she would see. "Will we ever really be safe?" she asked. "Probably not," Webb admitted. "But we proved something important. We proved that different species can work together. We proved that hope is stronger than fear. We proved that even the most powerful empire can fall if people refuse to give up." Sarah thought about Zektar's last words. Make it worth something. She had tried. They all had. "I'll take the position," she said. "But on one condition. We never forget what this cost. Every species we meet, every world we encounter, we treat them as potential allies, not enemies. The Krillian way of conquest and domination dies with them." Webb smiled. "Agreed." SAR's new flagship launched a week later. It was called the Unity, crewed by humans, Vexari, Delphians, and Lumens. As it left Earth orbit, Sarah stood on the bridge and looked at her crew. They came from different worlds, had different cultures, even breathed different air in some cases. But they shared something more important than biology. They shared hope. They shared courage. They shared the belief that the galaxy was better when people worked together instead of fighting each other. The galaxy had watched humanity, and its allies strike back against an empire that seemed invincible. They had watched the impossible become possible through sacrifice and unity. Now, the galaxy would watch as those same species built something new. Not an empire, but a coalition. Not conquerors, but protectors. Not masters, but partners. Sarah looked at the stars ahead and smiled. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. And for the first time since Earth fell, she felt ready for whatever came next. The galaxy was watching, and it would see that hope had won.